All right, Hariom everyone. Thank you for coming, and especially on such a cold day, right? And I hope everyone stays warm this week. Please follow whatever instructions required to make sure your home is also prepared for the cold. And I also want to wish everyone a happy Makara Sankranti, and may this year become just as fruitful as last year, if not more so, both spiritually and materialistically in both realms. So with that, today we will go ahead and start with our opening prayers. Then we will chant Sadhana Panchakam, both, we'll do lead and repeat style for all 3 verses, just so we get a little bit more practice in. And then today we will see the meaning of the 3rd verse. We'll take a little bit from the previous last pada of the verse number 2 and then see the main parts of verse 3 today. And yes, thank you for the door. Much better. All right. So with that, let's sit up straight, take a deep breath in, let it out. One more time. Let it out. We'll do one long Om and then get into our opening prayers. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidya Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. All right, so please repeat after me. Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam Tadudidam Karma Swanushtiyatam Tene Shasya Vidhiyatam Shasya Vidhiyatam Apachitihi Apachitihi Kamye Matistyajatam Kamye Matistyajatam Papogaf Paridhuyatam Bhavasukhe Dosho Nusandhiyatam Atmecha Vyavasiyatam Nijagrihat Turnam Vinirgamyatam Turnam Vinirgamyatam. Now for verse 2. Sangat Satsu Vidhiyatam Sangat Satsu Vidhiyatam Bhagavato Bhaktir Dridhadhiyatam Shantyadiv Parichiyatam Shantyadiv Parichiyatam Dridataram Karmashu Santyajyatam Karmashu Santyajyatam Sadvidvanupasripyatam Sadvidvanupasripyatam Pratidinam Tatpaduka Sevyatam Paduka Sevyatam Brahmaikaksharamardhyatam Shrutishiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Verse 3. Vakyarthasya vicharyatam. Shrutishiraf Pakshas samashriyatam. Dustarkat suviramyatam. Shrutimatas tarkonusandhiyatam. Brahmasmiti vibhavyatam. Aharahar garvav parityajyatam. Deheham matirujyatam. Buddhajanair Vadav parityajyatam. All right, so let's put all three together and chant all three verses together. Vedo nityam adhiyatam tadudidam karma svanushtiyatam tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam papogaf paridhuyatam bhavasukhe toshonusandhiyatam atmecha vyavasiyatam nijagrihat turnam vinirgamyatam sangat satsu vidhiyatam bhagavato bhaktir dridadhiyatam shantyadif parichiyatam dridataram karmashu santyajyatam sadvidvanupasripyatam pratidinam tatpaduka sevyatam brahmaikaksharamarthyatam shrutishiro vakyam samakarnyatam Vakyarthasya vicharyatam Shrutishiraf pakshas samashriyatam Dustarkat suviramyatam Shrutimatas tarkonusandhiyatam Brahmasmiti vibhavyatam Aharahar garvav parityajyatam Deheham matirujyatam buddhajanai vadav parityajyatam. So one trick I've learned from this practicing, you got to have a lot of breath and just keep going through the whole line. So we had seen in the end of verse number 2 that once we have surrendered to Bhagwan, we then switch our upasana from saguna upasana to nirguna upasana. Saguna means, how do I recognize that Brahman, that substratum, that existence, consciousness, bliss principle in a form that I'm able to see, hear, touch, that's something that my mind can grasp, which is why we have so many forms of Bhagwan. If he's infinite, then he has infinite manifestations. So why not have thousands upon thousands of Bhagwan form? And whichever one resonates with me, I connect with him and deepen my bhakti towards him. So we start with saguna, with gunas. So he looks blue, he wears yellow clothes, he has this sort of shakti, he holds this in his hand. These are all of the things he's done in his lifetime. Those are things my mind can hold on to. But as we increase the attitude of karma yoga and increase the bhava of bhakti, that dedication saying that I am not the doer, Bhagwan is flowing through me, the world happens on its own according to his ichha. As we start loosening our identity with our ego, the ego will start diminishing to absolute zero. And interestingly, one time I asked, I think it was last week, with our parents and our high school students, I asked them one question. I said, in Shastras, what does Shastras have to say about the ego? How much ego are we allowed to have? Sorry, it was a long-winded question. But how much ego are we allowed to have? What does the Shastras tell us? What would you say? Is it, give me a percentage. Are we allowed even 1%? 10%? What would you say? Zero, right? Absolute zero. We have to remove it completely. In fact, the students weren't able to say that. They're like, maybe a little bit? No. Absolute. We have to completely negate and annihilate that ego. So, once we have enough chitta shuddhi and chitta ekagrata, these are, again, I will be drilling these two words this entire time. Chitta shuddhi means this mind has become pure. We always have to ask, pure of what? Pure of this ego. And I have completely removed that ego. I have attained chitta shuddhi. Now, that mind, no longer identified as this self, what is it to do then? It is supposed to bring itself together and stay focused on who am I and what is my substratum, my true nature. Is it able to stay put in concentration in trying to figure out who I am? Or does it constantly get distracted every now and then by the ego or the desires or its attachment or something from the world outside? Does it distract me? So this is that second ability that we have to develop through chitta ekagrata, eka, oneness, single pointedness of the mind. So when we have performed karma yoga well, removed that ego, when we have taken up saguna upasana on an Ishtadevata, a form of Bhagwan that I like, I am also developing concentration on Bhagwan. Now when they have both been done well, I am ready for the next step. That is when we switch from saguna upasana to nirguna upasana. Nirguna means nir, without any qualities. Bhagwan is infinite. He is everywhere. He is all possibilities, and he is no possibilities. He is other possibilities. He is everything. We come to this point where the mind and the intellect starts to struggle because we've reached its limits, and we're asking it to go beyond its own limits. So now things get a little abstract, things get confusing, and sometimes we're like, okay, this is Vedanta, I'll get to it later, and we go back to a topic we're more used to. But we have to come to this point. That is why we see Brahmaikakshara martyatam. Brahma akshara artyatam. I start focusing on this word that represents Brahman. What is this one word? Om. Om takes into consideration all stages of experience we can possibly go through. Have I gone, just remind me, have I gone through the explanation of Om? We have, right? Ma is waking, dream, and deep sleep. There's no other state of experience I know other than these three. And yet, we see Om represents all of them, plus the silence between every single Om. That silence is pervasive when there is Om and when there's no Om. When the sound is there, when the sound is not there, silence will always be there. This is representative of Brahman, who is there no matter what manifestation exists and what manifestation has become dissolved. So again, I'm like switching microcosm, macrocosm. We keep going through those stages because they reflect each other. Now, going through this, we might still be scratching our head. Okay, sure, these are abstract. This is theoretical. I sort of get it. I sort of don't get it. But we keep at it that I won't ever forget what Om is about, and I will try to continue to figure out what it means. So we haven't even had Upadesha yet. This is just switching upasanas. Now I'm ready for that ultimate truth. Once we're ready, we listen in depth to, where am I? Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Now I'm ready to listen to what does the Upanishads have to say about that Brahman. Give me that final statement. And we say Shruti Shiro because it is the head, the most important, the final destination that we're reaching for. The Vedas are so extensive that I can get lost in there. In fact, one of the Upanishads is called Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It is a big, big forest. Literally, that's the title of that Upanishad. It's so big that I can get lost in it if I don't stay focused on why I came to the Shastras in the first place. That's why it says Shruti Shiro, the head, the most important thing. That statements I have to pay attention to. Then Vakyarthasya Vicharyatam. We've now entered verse number 3. Having heard the most important statements, the final conclusion of those Upanishads, can I sit and think about them and actually come to understand its importance? Now, when we talk about the Upanishads, we say that it contains Mahavakyas. I'm sure you've heard of that before. Vedas have Mahavakyas. Now let me ask you this question. How many Mahavakyas do we have in our Vedas? Who says one? Raise your hand if you think it's just one. One Mahavakya. Okay. Who says there's 4? There's 4 Mahavakyas. Okay. Who says there's a lot? I don't even know how many. There's a lot. Okay. Who has no idea and doesn't want to answer? Fair enough. You're like, I know there's a trap coming, I want to answer. So, some do say there's 1, some say there are 4, some say there's so many. So let's try to understand what is true. Now, when we look at the main statement of a Mahavakya, there's a simple formula. Jiva Brahma Aikya. Jiva is this individual. Brahma is that substratum that is in and through everything. Aikya, ekam, it's all synonyms, right? It means one. So a formula for Mahavakya is the individual and that complete Purna Brahman. This microcosm and that macrocosm are actually one and the same. This is a formula of a Mahavakya. So we see many different statements being written in the Upanishads. Sorry, I'm trying to find where my list is. Okay. So we see from examples like Prajnanam Brahma. That's considered as a Mahavakya. Prajnanam Brahma means that consciousness is the same consciousness here, and it is one and the same. So again, we see the Jiva Brahma Aikya in that formula. Another example is Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahma Asmi. Aham is this individual, Brahma is that, and it is one and the same, Asi. I'll give you 3 more examples just so we catch the pattern here. Tattvam Asi. Tat means that, so we're pointing at Brahman. Tvam is you or this individual, Asi. So again, same formula. Ayam Atma Brahma. This Atma is that Brahma. Now, why did I pick these particular 4? Now, those that support saying there's only 4 Mahavakyas, these become the most popular. Why these 4? How many Vedas are there? 4, right? Well, for each one of those Vedas, there is an Upanishad containing a very popular Mahavakya that is used as a representative for those Vedas. So these 4 that I just went through. Prajnanam Brahma comes from Aitri Upanishad. And last week when I was explaining this, I made a mistake. I said Taitri Upanishad, but it's actually Aitri Upanishad. I misheard it. And it comes from Rig Vedas. Aham Brahmasmi comes from that big one, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And that represents the Yajur Vedas. Then Tattvam Asi, the most famous one that we're used to hearing, comes from Chandogya Upanishad that represents Sama Vedas. And finally, Ayam Atma Brahma is from Mandukya Upanishad from Atharva Vedas. So in a way, they said, okay, of all of them that are there, I want 4 that represents each of these Vedas. Therefore, people often say there are only 4 Mahavakyas. All right, fair enough. But then you open any Upanishad. I took two as an example. From Kathopanishad, you have Tadeva Brahmatvam Vidhi. Know that Tat Eva, that indeed is Brahma. Then from Kathopanishad, Etat Vaitat. This is indeed that. So now we might ask, how many Upanishads are there? How many Upanishads are there? Some say there are major ones, there are minor ones. I don't know. I haven't looked it up. They say most popularly there's 108 Upanishads, and the validation for this it comes from the Upanishad where it's a dialogue between Hanumanji and Ramchandraji. Hanumanji states in his dialogue the 108 Upanishads that contain this main messages. Each Upanishad will have 100 different little statements given the same formula. Jiva, Brahma, Aikya. Okay, I went through all of this because I want to come back and revisit the question. Do we have one Mahavakya? Do we have 4 Mahavakyas? Do we have many Mahavakyas? Take your pick, whatever you like, take that as an answer because it applies. There's one formula that applies no matter what it is. If it doesn't follow that formula, it's not a Mahavakya. You want to go by the Vedas? There are 4 main Mahavakyas. You want to go by Upanishad? Take your pick, there's so many. I kind of feel like this is when Shrutis and Shastras become like a mother. What do you feel like doing today? Okay, let me give you something that matches your mindset today. What do you feel like tomorrow? Okay, here's something else that's also good for you that matches your mindset. So why box ourselves? Why do we have to say, no, there's only 4. No, there's only 1. There's only many. We have all of them. The point being that when we say what is the main purpose of why we come to spirituality, why do we come to the Upanishad, why are we coming to Vedanta, the end of the Vedas? For this identity. Jiva, Brahma, Aikya. Who am I and who am I truly? Okay, so we've probably heard many wonderful, miraculous stories of this great Shishya. He's so amazing, so qualified. He goes to the Guru and says, Guru, give me that Atma Jnana, give me that highest knowledge. And he says, Tat Tvam Asi. And then suddenly this student has this halo. Aha, I've realized. Okay, there are stories and it is true, but these are exceptions. Usually the rest of us come to the Guru and we hear the word Tattvam Asi and we're like, so what? Tat, what do you mean that? You, what do you mean you? Why? What's so important about Tattvam Asi? It's such a vague sentence. This shows that there is not enough subtlety in our mind to come to even understand why that question or why that statement is even important in the first place. If you were to go into the middle of New York City or in the middle of Dallas or California or somewhere where it's highly populated, and you stand in the middle of a good intersection and you say, you are not you are that substratum. Somebody's gonna take you to the asylum. Because most people don't know why it's important. They don't care. Look, I'm just here to live my life. I have my desires, I have my family, I have my job. Give me something that will help me there. What's so important about Tattvam Asi? So the point here is, if we see in this verse, reflect upon the meanings of the commandments of the Upanishads. Hear it, but then we have to actually come to understand it and see what is the weight and gravity of these statements. So let's pick this apart a little bit. Let's see why it's important to do vichara on this. We say Tat Tvam Asi 3 parts. Tat references Ishvara. Who is Ishvara? What is Ishvara? How would you describe Ishvara? We go to Shastras. We say, I have no idea. I can give you a whole bunch of ideas, but let's go by something a little bit more reliable. Shastras say Ishvara is Sarvagnya. He's all-knowing. Sarva Shaktiman. He has all infinite possibilities within him. And Sarva Vyapi. Vyapi means to be everywhere, all-pervasive. All-knowing, all-pervasive, and all-powerful. Definition of Ishvara. Okay, fair enough. Tvam. Who is Tvam? Tvam is me. Tvam is this individual. And you're telling me that and this are one and the same? Am I all-knowing? Definitely not. Am I all-pervasive? I wish I was. And am I all-powerful? Do I have every ability within me? No. I struggle with it day in and day out, and I'm constantly developing new skills because I don't have it. Then how can you say Tattvamasi? How is Ishvara and this individual the one and the same? This is why that sentence doesn't make sense when we hear it for the first time. We have to figure out how and why. So we come to, there are two stories I actually want to share when it comes to this investigation. Why vichara is the most important thing. Shravana is required because nobody else will tell you there's something called Atma or Brahman. Shastras and Guru are the only ones that can give us this. But having heard this, how do I start understanding this? So this reminds me of Swami Ramana Maharshi ji. His most famous question that he asks anyone who comes is, who am I? Who are you? I think there's actually a biography on him called Who Am I? So there was once, this was again during 1940s, right? So 1940s, what's the biggest world event happening at that time? World War II. So many people, sevaks, bhaktas came to Ramana Maharshi ji and said, please Guru, for your own safety, please find shelter. Don't just be hanging out here. That too, you're in the Himalayas, right between China and Japan, and there's this whole world war happening. Please be careful. Let's take you somewhere safe. And his question was, sorry, I want to get the, He says, one of them also said, the Japanese have invaded Chennai and they'll bomb this place very soon. He said, on whom is this bomb going to fall upon? Who is this you and who is this I that this bomb is going to fall upon? At this point, you're like, why are you even asking that? Don't be philosophical on me. I want your safety in mind. Let's go. It doesn't matter. Even if it's life-threatening, he says, who is being threatened? Then there was another British lady that came to him. She had heard about him and she was having a lot of family issues. And so she said, Guru, I have heard so much about you. I want to learn from you. I'm having a lot of problems. I need your advice. I need a guru like you. And of course, Ramana Maharshi is also very strict. He says, I'm not going to give any teaching unless I know who you are. Introduce yourself. And she said, okay, well, this is my name. I'm a wife of the general of such and such person. And suddenly he said, stop. I asked you, who are you? You're telling me what people call you. You're telling me who you're related to. I said, who are you? You're not introducing yourself. Okay, so she tried again. She said, well, I have 2 sons. I have 2 daughters. I live here. And you can tell she was struggling a little bit. And again, he said, stop. These are people related to you. I said, who are you? And now she really was stumped. She thought, I can't say that I'm a Britisher. I can't tell him how old I am. I can't tell him what my BMI, what I feel, who am I. I can't say any of that. And then she stopped. He's truly asking the most important question, who are you? Who am I? These are all traits about me, but who am I essentially? We all get stuck. But this is where the Guru is pushing us to think. You hear Tattvam Asi, but do you know Tattvam Asi? Even in, we took up the text of Bhaja Govindam last year, or the year before that. And Bhaja Govindam is treated as a prakarana grantha, a very introductory text, something simple to start connecting with the Shastras. But when we go back and look at verse number 8, in Bhaja Govindam, we see this highest knowledge being given already. This is Kate Kanta Kaste Putraha Samsaro Yamativa Vichitraha Kasya Tvam Kaha Kuta Ayataha Tattvam Chintaya Tadiha Brataha. He says, who is your wife? Who is your son? Supremely wonderful is this samsara. Vichitra. I don't even like the word wonderful. It's strange, marvelous, something I can't even figure out. This samsara is like this. From whom are you from? From where have you come from? Oh brother, think of the truth here. Kaha tvam. Who are you? This is verse number 8 in the introductory texts. Goes to show that this is truly where we're starting and ending when it comes to Shastras. We have to get rid of our ego, get rid of our attachments, get rid of desires, angers, fears, all of these durgunas within us, because they have to settle down for us to even start paying attention to these questions. Why do I have attachments in the first place? Why do I get anger in the first place? It's because I think I am this individual. This individual that is limited constantly has fears. I don't have this, I don't have that, this body is going to end, what's going to happen at the end of my life, constantly riddled by fear because of limitation. So answering the question, who am I, is truly going to solve all the other issues we have. But until and unless I give my time to settle down those anxieties, chitta shuddhi and chitta ekagrataha, I won't come to understand the importance of these questions in the first place. So this entire process is leading us towards this. Now, having come to the Shraddha, okay, I understand why this investigation is important, but still, how do I do vichara on this? How do I figure out why is tattvam asi a true statement? How do I resolve these conflicts of information? When I say conflicts of information, this is an important concept here. There is a conflict of pramanas. Pramana means it is the means by which I know something. The means by which I know something. So how do I know how something smells? What's the only way I can get to know that information? Nose. My tongue can't smell something, though it comes pretty close. My eyes can't smell something. My hands can't smell something. With hearing too. How do I hear something? Only through the ears. I find it hilarious when driving, when I'm getting confused, I turn down the music so I can see the sign better. Interesting how these senses interplay with each other. But the point is that each organ is the designated pramana for that data. The eyes cannot pick up the smell data. The ears can't pick up the sight data. There's a pramana for each. Have you ever played this game where you blindfold yourself or blindfold somebody and you get them to smell one item and have them eat a different item at the same time? If not, try it today. Like, take different examples from your refrigerator. Smell a lemon and eat a carrot. Or take the eucalyptus oil and then have them eat a bitter gourd. Just really mess with them. Your brain can't process what's going on. Because usually when you're consuming something, your smell and your tongue are in alignment and it gives you information of what that meal is about. But when you throw it contradictory information, your brain cannot process that information. This is contradictions of Brahmana. This is just an example, an analogy I'm taking here. Now let's bring it to that highest level. If I'm to indicate something that is beyond the perception of my mind and intellect, then what is the pramana for it? Who is the reliable means of knowing that which cannot be comprehended by the mind and intellect? Sorry, that was a really long sentence. Let's try it again. That if something exists outside of the realm of my mind and intellect, then how am I supposed to know it? By which means am I to come to understand that it even exists? Shruti and Shastras are my pramana. No one else will be able to tell me that there's such a thing called Atma or Brahman. And no other means will tell me what is the nature of Brahman, that it is sarva-vyapi, that it is unchanging, that it never decays, that it is Sat Chit Ananda. No other means can tell me that information. But then when my mind is trying to grasp that, there's only one thing, one without a second. That's not what I see. That's not what I experience. I see multiplicity. I see variety. I see things that arise, exist, and decay. So now I have two pramanas that conflict with each other. Just like the lemon and the bitter gourd, there's conflict of pramana. Here's a conflict of two pramanas. What am I to do with that now? How do I resolve this? This is called the process of mananam. Shravana is to remove the absence of knowledge. Mananam is to resolve the conflicts in knowledge. So that needs to become very well chewed upon. And if there are any lingering doubts, any unresolved information in the mananam step, I cannot graduate to nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam, as we saw a hint of it in today's assembly, is to sit in the seat of meditation, drop all identities, and come to remove anything that blocks me from understanding what my true nature is. How can I drop that if I still have doubts? So it has to be 100% mananam. Every doubt, every possible contradiction has to be resolved. Otherwise, I will be blocked in experiencing the result of meditation. Mananam is the biggest chunk we have to work on. So then how do I do this? Now, before I get into the hows, which we will see next time I come here, there is this idea of Shraddha that we need to explore. This is related to the next statement in this verse here. Take refuge in the truth of Brahman as given in the Upanishad. So this is Shruti Shiraf Paksha Samashriyatam. Take refuge in the truth that has been given in the Upanishad. Because we have to come to understand why Jiva Brahma Aikya is true. Now this becomes very problematic in today's day and age. Those of us that have not grown up through the Vedic traditions, especially being here in the US, and especially if you look at the high schoolers, middle school and high school, when you try to present a spiritual concept, they put their hands on their hips saying, prove to me how and why. Until I'm convinced, I won't believe. We get frustrated because we get stuck in trying to prove it to them. But honestly, aren't we in the same mindset too? We just don't take the time to actually question it, but we also get stuck in that mode. So how do I resolve this? How do I come to believe what the Shastras say, but resolve the intellectual differences I find? So the approach is, there was a quote by Puja Gurudev that was really important. Puja Gurudev defines faith is knowledge pending discovery. Faith is knowledge pending discovery. Faith plus time equals discovery. What does this mean? That let me take something as valid, then apply my intellect and investigate and acquire and figure it out, and then come to see if that is true or not. Take a knowledge, give it time, give it some inquiry, and then we'll come to see whether it's true or not. Don't we do this in the field of mathematics and physics constantly? We take a hypothesis, treat it as if it's true, do our experimentation, find our conclusions, and compare it back to our hypothesis and saying, is it valid or not? And in fact, this kind of shraddha we use constantly in our day-to-day life as well. Let's take, for example, the birds. They have a habit of chirping for every sunrise, right? When I was in high school and middle school, I had like a big oak tree right outside my window. It was the most annoying thing in the world. Why? Because these stupid little sparrows would be chirping shrill right next to my window where my bed was. When do they start? 4 a.m. I had stayed up late studying for an exam. I only went to bed at 1 a.m. and 3 hours later these birds are chirping and waking me up. So I would get so mad. But why is it that they're chirping at 4 a.m.? It's still dark out. In fact, the sun won't rise until another couple of hours. Where are they getting the confidence to chirp? Because of their prior experience. They know every morning the sun will rise, therefore they chirp. So since being a little chick, having understood this, it is now part of their routine, and it is a faith and shraddha they have that every day that sun will rise. Okay, these are birds. I'm not a bird. Tell me something a little bit more about how I use shraddha in my day-to-day life. When we walk into a building, how much shraddha do we have that this structure will stay up? How much shraddha do we have of the construction worker that put in the effort here? Only when, winter storm comes through, only when the house is old enough and then you start seeing little leaks here, our shraddha starts to shake a little bit. But you walked into this building without even thinking. How about when we get into the car? How much shraddha do we have in people that we don't even know that built this car saying it will take me from point A to point B at 90 miles an hour? How much shraddha do we assume in this world to function? So if there's any exercise I would like you to take for this week, figure out how much shraddha do I have in this world around me. Now, we should come to a point when we really analyze our life that those hardships we go through is when our shraddha gets tested. And the biggest shraddha is, I will live forever. When our health goes down, when we see others struggling, that's when the fear of limitations start coming back to us. Do I really have that much time? If I don't know if I'm going to live tomorrow, what am I supposed to do with it? Suddenly there's this fire under our butts, like, I got to do something meaningful with this day that I know I may have. The shraddha we have, we use it so often and so prolifically. Why is it that we always come and question shraddha when it comes to the shastras? Dude, you use shraddha all the time. Why not just extend it to the shastras? Give it an opportunity. Take Tattvamasi as a fact. Let's sit down with the shastras and try to figure out how and why it's true. So this I like to call as the positive approach to inquiry. And we have to do that for ourselves. Okay, there are phenomenal things that the shastras tell us. There are almost things like miracles. How is it that, the Kauravas, there are 100 of them, that too with only one birth? How is it that Karna was born without a husband? These are recent topics I've been having to deal with the teachers when it comes to questions that we get from the kids. Or how is it that Bhagavan Krishna held up, the mountain with just a pinky? There's so many great things that happen in our shastras and we're ready to dismiss it. I don't have shraddha in this. Prove to me how this is valid. So teachers get into a bit of a conundrum where they have to use science to then justify our shastras, saying that, well, you have test tube babies, so why couldn't the gata, the pot, be considered as test tubes? Or, long distance calling. We have phones now. In Star Trek, you have beam me up, Scotty, teleportation. You have to now start justifying what we use and take shraddha in now to then help them extend that shraddha to something that they wouldn't do naturally. So the point is, if we can ourselves start to cultivate a sense of shraddha, let me take this as true, let me test it out, and then come to validate if it's true or not for myself. If I can start practicing that, then I can slowly teach my own children that don't question it in such a way that you come in a negative angle. No, I won't accept this until you prove to me that this is true. Until then, it's all hocus pocus. No. Flip it around. Give it a chance. Give it a chance to show you if it's true or not. That would be shraddha. The reason why this is important is because when we start delving into the logics of trying to understand Tattvam Asi, we have to allow the logic to speak itself out. When we give it that chance, when we have that mindset, then the importance of the logic will sink in a little bit. So next time we come to this, we will start looking at the styles in which shastras walk us through the logic of understanding why is this individual the same as the macrocosm. So I'll give you tidbits here. There is the Panchakosha Viveka. Pancha means 5. Kosha means layers or sheets. Viveka to distinguish what is true and what is not true. With these 5 layers, what aspects are true, what aspects are not true when it comes to Tattvam Asi. That's one style of analysis. Another style is, I'm forgetting the Sanskritam phrase, but it means the analysis of the 3 states of experience. Waking, deep sleep, and dream state. What parts of this is true and not true, and how does it apply to Tattvam Asi? And here's another homework assignment. If you really want to get into that level of analysis, watch Inception. I really do mean it. Go watch Inception at some point this week because they play around with those ideas. How do I know what's real? If I keep falling asleep in one dream within another dream, and each dream feels like it's the reality, how do I know I've come out of those dreams and come to the real waking state? In fact, there are so many statements in Upanishads that say, how do you know, O king, that you are awake? So just as a thought experiment, go watch Inception. And keep the word Tattvamasi in the back of your mind and the 3 states of waking. How do I know what's real? Then there's another style where we look at the 5 elements. Where do these 5 elements come from? How is this world created? Now we're looking at it from a macrocosm. What is the truth behind this? Like this, there are thousands of different ways that the Upanishads walk us through the logic of trying to find the identity, the equation between the microcosm and the macrocosm, Tattvam Asi. So it will take a very tenacious and subtle mind to even start sitting with these concepts. I would say, if there's anything encouraging, don't give up. If it doesn't make sense, hit the books again. Keep trying until it slowly starts trickling into epiphanies. The first time I'd been exposed to the logic presented in Shastras was during the Vedanta course, and it made absolutely no sense to me. They said, the reflection in the water in the bucket, is that the same as the rays that come from the sun? And I'm like literally trying to draw a bucket of water, and I'm like, what? But slowly, when we rehear the same logic again and again, we start to understand how they're indicating things. It's hard to point at something directly which cannot be pointed. So there's a style in which they are pointing that out, and we have to come to understand that style. That in itself is the first process of understanding. Then to actually come to the message of what's being pointed out takes a little bit longer. So don't ever dismiss yourself saying that this logic, this is too much intellectualism. I'm not like that. I'm more comfortable with my karma yoga and my bhakti yoga. I'll leave jnana yoga for later. It's fine. Don't shortcut yourself. Let that karma yoga be the guidance of when I work in the world. When it comes to others, I will serve selflessly. For others, I am working. That way, through that, my ego comes down. My desires and fears and anger become settled. Then to develop my shraddha, that Bhagwan, Guru, and Shastras will give me that ultimate state of happiness. They won't promise me anything less than this. Let my shraddha develop through my bhakti. Bhagwan, it is you that is flowing through me. Bhagwan, you are the only one that can bring me to this highest state. Bhagwan, you are the only one that can teach me. Let that shraddha become stronger. When both of them are stabilized, let me hit the books and try to understand the logic. Slowly, diligently. Make note of all the things that don't make sense. Hey, this is another contradiction I don't understand. What do you mean by consciousness? What do you mean by happiness? Make a list of questions. Slowly go through it, because until and unless we answer every single contradiction in our experience, meditation will not happen. So it's worth it. And it doesn't matter how many lifetimes it takes, because it says, Shata Koti Janmaihi. It takes thousands of lifetimes to even achieve the brink of Jnana Yoga, but let's at least put one lifetime down, saying I got one down. 999,000 more to go. So next time we come, we shall see the next couple of phrases that are here when dealing with the logic of the Upanishads. The next statements are, avoid perverse arguments that follow the discriminative rationale of the Shrutis. Always be absorbed in the attitude or bhava that I am Brahman. And take refuge in that Upanishad. So we'll see a little bit more about that next time we come. So with that, thank you so much for this opportunity and chance to revisit these concepts. If we can next week, please do. We'll see if the streaming can continue so that the logic of this satsang continues. And there will be many more events that are coming up. There are seva opportunities that we definitely need your help with. Everything from maintenance for puja, the altar, to camp planning, to efforts we're doing for Frisco, helping build and create networks and all of that. So I would suggest, if you can, please visit our website. There is a link called a seva, and there you can actually see in more specifically what are all the areas that we need help with. And we would love to have your talents be used to uplift this whole community. So just last message here, if you can. I know January is a month of resolutions, so make seva as a part of that resolution, and we want to offer you opportunities where you can help and contribute. So think about it, search around, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Hadiji would be happy to answer, and all of our coordinators. If you find something that doesn't fit your talents or your tenacities, we will find a place that you can contribute, and we can all grow that way. So with that, thank you so much. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.